latest research of global warming's effect on
the Arctic, Antarctic, and glaciers.
According to U.S. researchers who have specialized in studies of Antarctica, the 30-million-year-old virtually isolated continent is the most affected in the world by climate change, with over 10 degrees Fahrenheit temperature increase since 1950.
A study by the U.S. National Center for Atmospheric Research, or NCAR, found that record Arctic sea ice melting last summer extended 1,000 miles inland to permafrost areas typically frozen year-round.
Satellite images in August 2008 showed the melting of two of Greenland's largest glaciers, speeding the already rising sea levels from southern Greenland's melt.
U.S. satellite scientists say Arctic ice loss in 2008 could surpass 2007, with a soon complete loss predicted, which would lead to the Arctic losing the ability to reflect solar heat back to space.
Tibetan Plateau glaciers have retreated by 82% in the face of rapid warming, which may further disrupt weather patterns in Asia and endanger the water supplies for billions of people.
Record high warming causes glacial melting, floods, and ultimate closure of Canada's Ayuatuk National Park, previously known as the land that never melts.
A group of the world's leading glaciologists warn of the alarming speed at which the Peruvian Andes glaciers are melting.
Global warming causes an 8-square-mile sheet of ice to detach from Ward Hunt Island in the Canadian Arctic, while a previously intact ice shelf of 3,500 square miles on nearby Ellesmere Island shrank to 5 small shelves, totaling only 400 square miles.
Scientists aboard a Russian research ship along the coast of Siberia recently discovered an extensive oceanic area releasing methane at amounts 100 times normal for the area, highlighting the threat of an acceleration of global warming.
Swedish scientists find a significant amount of methane above and in the waters of East Siberian seas due to warming conditions that are causing the methane to be released from small holes in the permafrost under the seabed.
Scientists at the University of Bremen in Germany have concluded that both the Northwest Passage over Canada and the Northeast Passage over Russia have melted, meaning that circumnavigation of the Arctic ice cap is now possible for the first time in an estimated 125,000 years.
British scientists confirmed that the Arctic ice is now melting even in winter.
New Zealand's National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research report that 2.2 billion metric tons of permanent ice disappeared from the country's glaciers between April 2007 and March 2008.
Scientists at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, India, said that global warming is causing the Gangotri Glacier to retreat by about 850 meters and continues at a rate of 17 meters each year.
According to Chile's chief water company, the Achoran and surrounding glaciers are receding at a rate of 12 meters per year, which will cause drying of the river that provides 70% of the water to the nation's capital of Santiago.
A study by the United Nations Environment Programme and the World Glacier Monitoring Service found that 35 to 40% of the total glacier area in the Tian mountain range of Kyrgyzstan disappeared in the past century.
Oceanographer Dr. David Carlson, director of the International Polar Year Program Office, said the complete loss of Arctic ice will have enormous effects on climate and weather patterns, with melting permafrost in the region already noted to be damaging buildings and requiring adaptive changes in the indigenous people's lives. According to the British Environmental Agency, 2 million Britons are unaware that their house and belongings could be quickly lost to swelling rivers or the rising sea. In 2007, extreme flooding affected 55,000 homes, with 1,000 families who are still staying in temporary living arrangements. Natural resources.
Demand for water in Namibia is expected to exceed supply by 2015 in this driest country of sub-Saharan Africa.
A new report by Australia's top scientists forecasts that the country will need to brace for a doubling of droughts and a 10-fold increase in heat waves due to climate change.
Dr. Semih Erkocin at Aksaray University warns that Turkey's once second-largest lake, which has shrunk 85% due to climate change, may disappear by 2015.
Syria's wheat harvest decreases 40% compared to 2007 due to drought in the northeast regions, straining the country's food self-sufficiency. The World Wildlife Fund UK reports that the Thames River system will have less water, but is in increasingly greater danger of flooding due to climate change.
The UK's ancient native oak, beech and ash trees are perishing as they cannot withstand the weather conditions brought on by climate change.
The cedars of Lebanon, some of them thousands of years old, face endangerment from global warming.
Amidst record lows in rainfall, temperatures in Australia's southeastern states of Victoria and Tasmania have reached record highs.
Scientists at the University of Vermont, USA, find that the cold-loving trees on the state's Green Mountains have retreated upward by 400 feet in just over 40 years.
The National Institute for Space Research reports a 69% increase, or 3,327 square kilometres more of the Amazon that have been lost in 1 year, citing the main causes as demand for meat and soya, 74% of which is fed to livestock.
The journal Nature Geoscience has published findings from Canada's Toronto University Scarborough scientists who discovered that global warming alters the molecular structure of soil, causing it to discharge more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The higher CO2 levels increase the Earth's temperature, causing the soil to release more of the greenhouse gas, and the cycle thus continues. Current levels of ground-level ozone have been noted to be 4 times greater than in pre-industrial times. This high concentration is responsible for a 7% decrease in tree growth since the late 1800s, according to a recent study published in the scientific journal Global Change Biology. Manfred Lang, professor of geophysics at Cyprus Energy, Environment and Water Research Center, states that the island nation is on its way to desertification due to drought caused by global warming. Oceans.
The United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, or FAO, reported that climate change-related changes in sea temperature are adversely affecting fish metabolism, growth rate, reproduction, and susceptibility to illnesses.
Researchers at the International Coral Research Symposium, or ICRS, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, USA, found that nearly 1/3 of over 700 coral species assessed globally are now at risk of extinction due to climate change and ocean acidification.
A new study by Australian and US climate scientists has disclosed that the world's oceans have been warming 50% more quickly in the past 40 years than previously understood from the IPCC's 2007 report.
Oceanography professor Stephen DeMarco of Texas A&M University, USA, has stated that the increased fertilizer nitrate-laden river runoff from recent flooding in the U.S. is likely to cause the Gulf of Mexico's 7,900 square mile dead zone to become even larger.
Swiss-based International Union for the Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, reports that seagrass meadows, vital as shelter and food for many marine species, are declining due to global warming.
Villages in the southern part of India's Gujarat state are being threatened by eroding shorelines due to global warming-related rising waters.
Throughout the 25-square-kilometre Weizhou Island in China, beaches, coastlines and buffer forests are being submerged with high tides even rising to window level outside some of the 15,000 residents' homes.
A new study by a team of University of Wisconsin, USA geologists has reported that the Greenland ice sheet, which is melting due to global warming, may cause a rise in sea levels of up to 1/3 of an inch per year.
A report from the World Wildlife Fund reveals that massive amounts of resources, such as water, that are consumed as an environmental cost of meat products.
The Australian Department of Climate Change states that up to 80% of Australians could be at danger of being submerged by rising sea levels due to their proximity to the sea.
Humans.
Argentine President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner declared a state of emergency on August 23, 2008 for 5 provinces in response to months-long dry conditions that were the worst in 50 years.
The nearly 2 million people in Bola, a small island in southern Bangladesh, are seeing firsthand the effects of climate change as each hour 11 Bangladeshis lose their homes to rising waters.
Following a prolonged drought with no end in sight, over 15,000 Somalians from the area of Galgadud have abandoned their homes and moved to a camp for displaced persons in hopes of finding water and aid.
The UN reports that with shrinking glaciers in Uganda's Ruwenzori Mountains and Nepal's Himalayas, evaporating lakes in Mali, Chad and Ethiopia, and eroding soil from Haiti's deforestation, refugees worldwide rose by 3 million.
A Netherlands research report states that the rise in pathogenic organisms due to climate change will cause an increase in such conditions as asthma and allergies, as well as skin cancer and Lyme disease.
Severe drought hits West Java in August 2008, with loss of crops to over 4,000 hectares of rice in 12 districts, affecting 12,000 farmers.
The Geological Survey of India says that recent land splits in Balasore that caused the evacuation of people are due to global warming.
A South Africa conference for journalists and media members highlights the connection between climate change and crop failure.
U.S. scientists cite an incident where a Minnesota, USA dairy farm caused residents from surrounding areas to have to flee their homes due to dangerously high levels of hydrogen sulfide, a noxious gas created by intensive animal farming operations.
The United Nations announces in July 2008 that over 14 million East Africans are in need of emergency food aid due to drought-caused crop loss and soaring food and fuel prices.
Iran resumes wheat imports as the nation's production fell by 20% in the past year due to a 50% decline in annual rainfall.
An Australian government report concludes that the nation's water supply is not assured after 2009, with the country currently undergoing the most severe drought in 100 years.
Peat bogs in Alaska, USA dry out in response to the warming climate, increasing the risk of wildfires and releasing heat-trapping methane and CO2 into the atmosphere.
Unregulated mining and other unsustainable activities, combined with rising sea levels due to global warming, leave Indonesia's islands in jeopardy, with 24 islands having already disappeared beneath the ocean and another 2,000 are facing the same fate. A report by the US-based research and education organization World Policy Institute stated that 90% of the large fish in the oceans had disappeared in the previous 50 years due to overfishing.
A survey by the International Food Policy Research Institute in Ethiopia and South Africa found that, largely due to a lack of resources, many farmers are struggling to adapt their growing practices to global warming conditions.
Wildlife.
Australia's Parliament urges greater protection from disease for the country's honeybee, whose pollination activities are vital for crop and other plant regeneration.
US research shows that 30 species of reptiles and amphibians are moving to higher elevations for cooler habitats due to global warming.
A study by US ecologists shows that species may become extinct much faster, in some cases 100 times sooner than was previously thought.
Dr. Russell Mittermeier, head of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, reports that nearly half of all species of monkeys and apes are under threat of extinction due to activities such as deforestation and hunting for meat, an alarming increase of almost 10% from a study performed just 5 years ago.
Scientists spotted 9 polar bears in the Chukchi Sea off Alaska, USA's coast that were attempting to reach a polar ice cap that had melted to a distance of 400 miles away, which was too far for the bears' survival.
Precipitous drops in bird populations in North America are linked to habitat loss due to urbanization as well as climate change effects.
In New York State, USA, 2 studies showed that as the planet warms, many birds have extended their range boundaries northward, and 90% of trees and plants have migrated upward over 200 feet.
The Philippines Protected Area and Wildlife Bureau states that 50% of the nation's animal species are endangered, with some nearly extinct that are unique to the region.
The World Wildlife Fund reports that very little time is left before an irreversible tipping point is reached due to deforestation and climate change effects in the Amazon rainforest.
With the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, noting that nearly 1/3 of the nearly 6,000 known amphibian species currently are threatened with extinction. A Stanford University study from California, USA, concluded that global warming is one cause and the widely used herbicide atrazine is another.
Global warming in Africa could devastate wildlife as Africa's rivers and lakes dry up and endanger watering holes.
Global warming endangers lemmings in Norway, with wetter snows resulting from warmer temperatures causing the collapse of their habitat.
With a tripling of the number of endangered species, Brazil Environment Minister Carlos Mink affirms his country's efforts to halt further loss by expanding federal protection programs.
The UK's Royal Society for the Protection of Birds notes that some species have decreased by more than 85%, with a more than 50% decline in farmland bird pairs since 1960, which coincides with the emergence of chemical pesticide use in farming.
Dr. Perry of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change states that half of all the tree species face extinction in the Amazon as a result of deforestation and global warming.
The International Fund for Animal Welfare reports that the decline of polar bear populations in the Russian Arctic is largely due to the melting ice of global warming.
The Arctic Report Card shows a record 5 degrees Celsius higher autumn temperature in the Arctic, leading to the decline of some species.
According to a recent report by the World Wildlife Fund, or WWF, higher temperatures in the Antarctic brought by global warming are threatening the survival of penguins.
Wildlife experts express concerns over the drastic decline of the Mojave Desert tortoise across the western United States due to climate change.
A study conducted by British and Chinese scientists stated that conditions resulting from the changing climate could cause the approximately 1,600 giant pandas remaining in the wild to relocate in search of bamboo for food.
The director of the organization Fauna and Flora International Philippines recommends the adoption of a law to conserve the forest in Palawan Island.
Wetlands International's study shows migrating bird populations through Africa and Eurasia have dropped by 40% due to global warming and habitat destruction by humans.
Be veg, go green to save the planet.